I am super excited to talk to you today about how do you get over the fear of change. I think that when I do free calls, when I talk to clients, that they want to pursue something different. They're burned out, they're stuck, they're frustrated, they feel like they're chasing time, they're waiting for something to get better, they're waiting for the right idea. And what happens in this space is that even if the greatest idea landed, their fear of the unknown is what gets them paralyzed. And so I want you to stay with me because I'm going to actually give you some techniques to help you start to free yourself from your fear of change. Okay. So I want to talk to you about this. I get it. So here I was in my life feeling very stagnant, but very safe and secure. I believed that my life was going to sort of evolve into some slight variation of my now. Like I'd stay at my house in LA. My kids would maybe come back. I'd be a grandma. I had peers and friends who were a little older who were sort of living that life, that I would travel, that I would always wake up, go into my kitchen, which at the time I thought was like the most amazing kitchen ever. And I would look out the window in my little garden and have my coffee. And like that was like the sweetest. And I was so attached to that when I ended up having my last cup of coffee and look out that window, I burst into tears, right? Because I was terrified of changing anything. And the process of getting to that moment where I could not only make the decision to do that, but then be in the change and not completely melt down, right? Was because of everything that happened up until that moment, right? And I just want to say this thing about that decision to leave LA after 25 years, to decide to put most everything that I cared about in storage, sell everything else, take down the home I built my family in, my kids' rooms, the photos on the wall, all of that, was really, really, really about feeling like there was more for me inside. It was almost like, and I don't know how many of you watch adventure reality shows or challenge reality shows, but I love them, right? And so Survivor is something I've been watching for years. And I remember in all the cast interviews, after it was over, people would be like, I grew as a person through this. I changed through this. Like I became more of who I am. And I was like, I want that. But I'm not going on Survivor. Like I don't, I need something, right? Um, but that part of me was really lost also, that part of me that was comfortable changing. Now for some of you, you'll easily change. You're like floating around from thing to thing, trying to solve a problem by changing your external circumstance, but it's still not right. And the reason I bring that up is because either way, the reason that you're feeling stuck, right, is because you haven't really discovered really what the real core problems are, why you are in that behavior pattern, either being paralyzed or jumping, never staying, never feeling satisfied. So let's talk about the fear of failure, right? One of my clients that I've been working with, really was afraid of making a big decision about retiring pretty early, actually. She was afraid that financially it wasn't going to be the smart move. She was afraid she was going to miss out on staying connected to people, that she would be alone, that if she left her town, sold her house, like all these things are like irrevocable, like if you do this, it's altering everything. And so even though she had a lot of dreams and a lot of things she wanted to do, that fear of doing the wrong thing kept her just stuck for years, trying harder, resolving every year, week to week, trying to do things better, doing something for like a week or two or three, and then totally not being able to stay consistent, right? And so wherever she was paralyzed because she was just too afraid to even consider the reality of what that would look like. And her story isn't just about fear, so to speak. It's that also having a different view of this possibility of changing your life, right? Of reinventing yourself. And that was to finally understand that anything that is a perceived setback or mistake actually is a setup for like not just a comeback, but a come into more of who you really are. That those obstacle courses, those challenges, those struggles, it's not just about like powering through and getting over your fear. It's about really going through the whole process of designing life on your terms, of living your freaking life full out, is understanding that there will be challenges. You will have fear. But it's about recognizing that once you decide to be in the movement, part of our movement of radical living, that every setback is a setup for coming into you more fully. So it's normal, right? To think like, what if I fail? What if I make a mistake? And I think that this fear comes from sort of like a cocktail of a lot of things, like our societal expectations, what our life is supposed to look like. Our inner critic, right? That voice that's constantly saying what you can and can't do. And the misconception is that to falter, to struggle, to have to pivot or realign is to fail definitively. And that is just simply a way of looking at life in which success and meaning comes to a point of, did I win? And the journey, right? The experience that you're having in your life, the growing, then becomes completely minimized and diminished to where you're living your life really looking constantly up the mountain and wherever peak you're on and saying, well, I'm not here. I have to keep going. Because when you have this mindset, I'm telling you, you can get to that peak, you can get to the top of the mountain, and all you'll do is see another mountain ahead of you. So for you, it's really important to think about what is for you, what are you afraid of failing? Is it starting a new business? Is it going back to school? Ending a relationship? Starting to date? Is it retiring? Is it writing a book? Is it setting boundaries with someone? I want you to name it. Because today I want you to start taking the power back from your fear by actually, rather than having this like little cloud, like Linus and the Peanuts, like just of all these, was it Linus? No, it was the dirty guy. I don't remember his name. You could tell me in the comments. But I want you to stop the like, just all the little fears that are just like lingering. I want you to actually name the thing that you are afraid of failing at, of making a mistake. So that's your first piece of homework. The second thing is I want to talk about risk taking and living courageously, which is my whole mission, right? I want you to think about that mountain peak, right? And think about other mountains that you've climbed, right? Because the thing is, you cannot get the view without the climb, right? Without the risk of slipping, of breathing hard, of recognizing you might be a little out of shape, of realizing that you're more capable than you thought you were. but the view is totally, totally, totally worth it. Every time we live courageously, every time we take a chance, right? Every time we claim what we want, it's another step up the mountain. I want you to think about this in a way of what I call experimenting, right? And that is that it's really important to understand that you have permission to start small, right? And that is to think about that thing that you're afraid of failing. If you were to reverse engineer it into one tiny first step, right? What is it that you could do, right? The very boring but trite sort of example would be like, I had a client who wanted to leave a job and wanted to, like, in her dream, she wanted to open a bookstore. And she had like this big vision for the bookstore. And it would be more than a bookstore, right? And so we talked about some small steps, right? About that idea. And it was so simple. So one of the ideas, right, the small step was to make a list of different bookstores that she really thought were cool, and make a point to just go in there and hang out for like 30 or 40 minutes and just notice as an observer and see what happened in the bookstore, how the customers were interacting with the staff, what kind of books were people picking it up, were they coming in with a coffee, were they looking for certain kinds of books, like what did it feel like to hang out in different bookstores. And then the other thing that she ended up doing was she started a book club, right? To see if she enjoyed that experience, right? Of being the leader, the facilitator, of curating books, of having conversations about books. So for you, it's about what is your thing, that your big dream, that was your first homework. What are you afraid of failing at? And then number two, what's a small step, a little risk, a little change that you could make to move one tiny bit forward? Because I want you to remember this mantra, write it on a Post-it note. Embrace the climb and treasure the view, right? It's about appreciating each step and knowing that through each step, you will get the feedback so that you can assess that you can make adjustments. And when you are in the living of your life, when you are in creating, you are fulfilling one of these 7 spiritual questions that I believe makes a meaningful life. And one of those questions is, what did you create? Creating isn't just about art projects. It's about creating motion. It's about creating impact. It's about creating connections. It's about creating feelings in your body of feeling excited or feeling scared, right? It's about creation. It's an active state of living. I want you to think about a time when taking a small risk led to something beautiful in your life, and hold on to that identity. You are a courageous woman. Hold on to that as proof that you can absolutely do it again. Last thing, every time that you stumble, right, I promise you will find a gemstone. And that's really what failure or mistakes or setbacks really are. They're the treasures, right? And they teach us and mold us. And that's what those experiments, those one small tiny steps are going to do for you. So in doing that one small step, I want you to think about, what does it teach you? Right? And then your third act, right? Your third homework from this little video is then to take that action, to take that one small step, and then look at, what did I learn? What was the lesson that I learned? Maybe it was a challenge that you didn't expect, or maybe the not doing anything because you're still afraid is the lesson, right? That maybe you haven't really got deep enough. So I want you to really think about that. The bottom line is that every failure, every experience, every step is just the journey, right? Embrace the climb and treasure the view along the way. So today we have talked about the journey being as important as the destination. You have identified a dream, something you're afraid of failing at. You have considered that actually taking the hike up the mountain is valuable in itself, right? And that you've thought about what are some small steps that you might take towards this dream, this thing that you're afraid of. Um, and you've reframed any fear, feedback, fails, anything as a precious step in that journey toward the top. And with that mantra, right? Embrace the climb, treasure the view, that we can live courageously and we can be part of this movement of women who are living radical lives because we are not only just daring to dream, but we are in the commitment to being in creation in the second adulthood of our life, in our midlife reinvention. So share your experience with me on Instagram. You can always send me an email, vip@datingwithdignity.com. I want to celebrate with you, and help you see the power that you have inside of you to create the kind of life that you absolutely love. And if you would like to have a conversation with me, I'm now offering these burnout solution calls where we will work together to identify and discover the main should that's keeping you stuck, so that you can start to begin this process of really discovering what's the root of your fear of change. So vip@datingwithdignity.com if that's something that is interesting for you, or you can just leave a comment that says breakthrough. Mwah. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.